Hi, I'm Jack.shilley and welcome to the July garden review. It's been a really fantastic month, July. We've had some very warm weather and it's really helped to bring everything on in the vegetable and fruit garden tremendously well. Everything's looking fantastically healthy, and in today's episode I'm going to be showing you around to let you know how everything's getting on, and I'm also going to show you how to take care of your crops now that they're actively growing and we've got this really lovely weather. So let's get started. I'm first going to take you to the vegetable plot to show you how the lettuce, carrots and chilies are doing. Okay, so this is how the vegetable plot is looking. A lot of the stuff that we planted a while back is now really coming into its own. The carrots are looking fantastically healthy, they're showing no signs of carrot fly or anything like that, they're doing really well. When they're at this stage, there's not an awful lot you can do, it's just a case of waiting till the autumn when they're ready to harvest. So they're doing really well, I'm happy with the progress on those. Keep them fed and watered during dry spells. With the carrots it is just a waiting game, and all you have to do is keep them watered in dry weather, and it might be a good idea to feed them occasionally just to keep them healthy and actively growing as we progress later on into the season. Now the chilies are a little bit slow to get going, but now we've had this warm weather and this dry period, the flowers have really come out into their own and there's loads of fruit coming on them. In fact, on some of these ones in the middle and towards the front here, they already got the fruit on them starting to form. They're doing fantastically well, and I'm actually really surprised at how well they're doing given that they're outside and some of the appalling conditions that we had to put up with earlier on in the season. They've done well. Again, it's advised to feed them. I'm feeding these with organic chicken manure pellets fortnightly because they're quite hungry, and that seemed to have really worked for them. They're doing really well. Now the lettuce seeds that I planted last week are now beginning to germinate too. They're starting to come through really well, and actually it's been a very good germination rate and they're all in a pretty straight line, which I'm really happy with. This lettuce, as I said in that episode, will probably be ready, I don't know, towards the end of August, September time, so there's a while to go yet, but they are germinating and they're doing fantastically well. Again, keep them watered in dry weather, and when it comes to harvesting your leaves, of course I'll have a video showing you how to do that. As you might remember, a little while ago I planted out my runner beans, which is my second sowing, and this is how they're looking now. They've just shot up so quickly, they're now right at the top of these canes. Now, as some of you commented that the canes might not be tall enough, well, they're doing okay actually, and you know, they are at the top of the canes and we do have sort of a bit of a mess here. And all you have to do with this is just to cut this out, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second. Otherwise, this frame is doing really well, and it's absolutely smothered in flowers, which is going to provide us with a fantastic crop later on in the season. So let me show you how to cut these long bits off. It's quite a simple process. So we've got this long strand here. Now what you want to do is you want to find where it's sort of coming from in here. You don't want to lose too many flowers. Try and make a sense of it as much as you can. They can get pretty tangled in this. And you want to cut it back to a node where there are flowers. And then what will happen is all the plant will put its energy into that one node, and it will produce many more flowers than it would have done normally. Now what you can also do with these, if you're not one for wasting a decent plant or the decent growth tips of plants, is train these back down the frame. So try and untangle them as much as you can and then train them to go down the frame again. So you're sort of layering it up and down like that. But I mean, otherwise, this frame is doing really well, and yeah, I mean, we're going to have plenty of fruit coming on it, certainly. There's no lack of flowers. And a bit further down, where the flowers have sort of been and gone, the fruit is starting to form already. It's doing really well. So that's tidied it up at the top of it. I might just take a few more bits and pieces out of the top here. And then what I'll do is I'll tie these up to the top of the cane so it looks a little bit neater. What I have noticed on mine, again further down on the older stuff, is that they have actually started to get black fly. Now unfortunately with runner beans, it's just one of those problems that's inevitable with the plant. All I'm doing is using an organic spray. This is just a very dilute mixture of washing up liquid mixed with water, so the majority of it is water. I'd say 90% of it is water and only a very small amount of washing up liquid. and I'm just spraying that on, and that seems to be doing the trick with my black fly and aphids on this at the moment. I do also have a chemical spray that's organic, so it can be used on fruit and veg, but I'd rather not use that at the moment when the fruit is starting to form. It's just not kind of my cup of tea to use that kind of thing. Otherwise, really healthy. Keep them watered in dry weather, and again, like the chilies, I'm feeding these fortnightly to ensure they've got enough energy to produce all these flowers and this really nice amount of fruit. What we have got in here though, one of the few things, is my melon plants. Now, I'm not sure quite what's happening with these, but they just don't seem to be growing very fast at all, if at all. And they just seem to be staying the same size that they are. Now this is the largest one that I recently potted on into this container, which is just about the right size for it. It's not brilliant, but it's decent enough. I'm feeding it, I'm watering it, but it still doesn't seem to be wanting to put on any, proper growth, or I haven't seen it, it certainly hasn't changed in size very often. And what I'm going to do is, hope we have some more warm weather, continue to feed it, continue to water it, keep it in here where it's really nice and warm, and see what happens. I'm not too sure that I'm going to get any fruit. It's getting a little bit late. They should be, I was expecting them to be a lot bigger than this by now, but we'll see what happens. Here I have my pumpkins. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, what a stupidly weird place to be growing pumpkins, and yes, I'll agree with you, it's pretty weird, but they're actually doing really, really well up here. I mean, this is an old disused trampoline, we don't use it anymore, we're going to be taking it down next season. But what I've done is I've put pumpkins into these large containers here, which are large enough to support the growth of the pumpkin. And then what they're doing is they're growing along and round the trampoline using the net to grow against. Now their little tendrils that they use to pull themselves along are doing a fantastic job of finding the net, wrapping themselves around it and then using that to pull themselves around. This is a really fantastic way of space saving. They're not trailing down onto the lawn and going to get chopped up by the lawnmower. They're not taking up practically the whole area of the vegetable plot, which means we can keep that free. And despite being in containers, they're doing really well. I'm feeding them regularly, that's a must in containers. Pumpkins are very, very nutrient hungry, so they need to be kept fed really, really often. And I'm also watering them at least twice a day. They're having at least 2 watering cans a day, and that's ensuring that they're staying really well moist, because again, in containers the roots aren't going to be able to find the moisture that easily and they're using it up really quick. What I have found is we had our first set of pumpkins, they came out and they developed, but then they rotted off, and I don't really know why. It could have been lack of water, could have been over water. So there's another set of pumpkins coming, the second set along the stem, and hopefully these will be better. This time around I've also hand pollinated them to try and ensure they've been pollinated properly, whereas the last time they might not have done because they were a little bit early. And then hopefully we'll be able to get a much more developed pumpkin. They came out firm the last lot, but then went very soft and squidgy and not very nice, so we've had to cut them off. We've also done a bit of pruning on these pumpkins to remove the dead and the damaged, diseased foliage. That's all come off and they seem to be responding to that well. It is purely just a case of keeping them well watered when you can and feeding them as much as possible when they're in containers. The same applies in the ground. They're going to need a lot of water and they're going to need a lot of food if you want a really big, nice sized pumpkin. That we've actually got a huge amount of tomatoes coming on our tomato plants. You can see that the plants blend into the rest of this mixed border really well. They're using the trees as the supports. We've got a few canes in the middle ones here, but we have 3 different varieties that are all doing really well, and as I said, they're using the natural trees as the support. They're must be about 6 foot high, multiple trusses on each plant. They're in a nice, decent sized grow bag that's being fed with the organic chicken manure pellets fortnightly. They're really, really soaked every night by the sprinkler that comes on. They're doing fantastically well. I mean, all I can recommend is these Levington Tomrite grow bags have treated them really well. Feed them as much as you can and keep them really, really well watered in a full sunny spot if you can. I can only say they do really well there. It's the first year I've properly tried growing tomatoes like this, and they're doing really well, and I'll definitely grow them this way again. Well, that's it for part 1 of this July update. There's been so much going on, I haven't had time to fit in the fruit and the strawberries, pine berries and the actual fruit trees and bushes in this episode. So there's going to be another July garden review that's focused on fruit. That'll be out on Friday evening. Thank you for joining me for this vegetable part 1 of the July garden review, and hopefully you'll tune in tomorrow and look at how our fruit is doing as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future video updates. And also, if you have any comments, queries, questions or anything else you'd like to share with the other viewers on the channel, then please post it in the box below and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.